Right. So as we're going to get started, I'm going to share on today a topic that's somewhat popular, but as is often the case in this world, it's misunderstood. We're going to talk about soul contracts. But before I get to that, related to it, but on another level, it's very interesting to me because this world, even the so-called spiritual community, the spiritual folks, you know, those who feel dedicated to self-help or awareness and development and so on, there's still such a void in really understanding things. So, you know, like with soul contracts, you know, there are people who just go, well, okay, you know, I invented this whistle, you know, and it dissolves soul contracts. You know, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You have to dissolve soul contracts. You know, people are thinking like if you use Colgate as toothpaste, it dissolves soul contracts. It does not. It doesn't do that. Humans have to recognize the world can only change but through our consciousness changing. The outer world reflects the inner world. Of what? Of us. If you want to change contracts of any kind, karmic or whatever, you change consciousness, not toothpastes. You change consciousness. You don't brush away your soul contracts. So, that said, it's not to say that these other things aren't at all valuable. Certain gemstones or semi-precious stones or whistles and gongs, and those things are helpful as being exactly what they're called, tools. They're not the thing, they're tools. And this has been really disputed and challenging for people since the beginning of time. You've had, you know, the challenges with Israelites worshiping, you know, images, and they have to be told the image doesn't actually do anything. And then they're told, you know, no, just let it go and get back to God, right? So we're not, the way I don't like shaming people. So if you've got some sacred object, you know, some square box that you painted purple, it's a shoebox and you painted it purple, sprinkled glitter on it, and you pray to it. I don't care. I'm not the type that's going to say, you know, how dare you worshiping a shoebox. I'm not going to shame you. I'm glad that you're doing something for your greater good. Congratulations. But I'm also going to talk about the consciousness behind all things is the ultimate power. We're made in the image of God. Consciousness has power, not shoeboxes, not toothpaste, and so forth. It's consciousness. So when you want to break up contracts, you change consciousness. Well, how do you do that? Mainly through forgiveness. Forgiveness is the main thing that changes your mind. You can do other things and it can help. But consciousness mainly changes minds. And people, you know, you can say, well, I don't think I have any major contracts. I think I'm over all that. Being in a body is a contract. Being in a body. You know, so don't think you're immune to it just because, you know, you wear white or purple or whatever, you know, you're spiritual, you know. That's not what makes you immune to this. It's consciousness. So we have to break up all these patternings that we live under, such as money doesn't grow on trees. That's a contract. Who decided that? Well, it just doesn't. Who said? There's some people going, oh, you're moving, you know, to a new property. Oh, but this property has this and it has that. It only has what we decided that it has. The building doesn't have power. We do. Oh, but and they come up with this whatever, sacred geometry. Oh, but it's pointing 3 degrees north, and that's my moon is starred that, and my astrological. I don't care. I really don't. What happened to the forefathers of this country? Let's line Washington, D.C. to the stars and to the elements of, you know, all the Freemasonic secret society stuff. And there was a point where one of the forefathers just said, you know what? You guys are overthinking this. Because the building has to be just 3 feet further to stop. And he just stuck a pole in the ground and said, that's where it's going to be. Just let go of all these patternings. I can never get over this issue of somebody that hurt me. That's called a contract. What are you going to do when they don't come back with you in the next lifetime? What if they get over you? You know, I forgave myself for what I did to them. I feel free. And you're like, never. You'll never be free. What are you going to do? You think you can drag them back? Consciousness controls it all. If they're done with you, you've got to find somebody else with a similar grossness to come back into your life. You know, and you got to put it out there on this job site network on the other side. You know, dysfunctionalcontracts.com on the other side. You know, you're not going to get the person you've been wanting to drag here. And people like to drag other people back. Oh, you're not getting away with what you've done to me. And what will happen is when you go, oh my God, they threatened, your mind can get hooked. Because fear is the greatest virus. So when somebody threatens, I'm going to get you back for this, people can hold for lifetimes a bond with someone else. How? Scare them. Intimidate them. Create fear, and they'll succumb. But there's a point where somebody can say, wait, no, I'm done. You know, you just have to have enough of an epiphany that says, I decided I'm done. And be done. They'll have to hire somebody else. You know, you can send them a card. I'm really sorry about this, you know, but, you know, I know you thought I hurt you. And now this might even hurt more because I'm not coming back with you. You know, don't really send people cards. It's just an example. Because you're only going to upset them more. But you can know that, you know, like you're done. Now, everybody has done this at least once in their life. Free at last, thank God Almighty, free at last. Everybody's done it at least once, I hope. But likely, and here's how you'll know you've done it. When you don't feel any charge. You don't feel any, oh, God, I don't know if it's done, then it's not. I wonder if I owe them, then it's not done. I think they owe me, then it's not done. And if you think that I would like off the hook with something I did to this person, but you're holding some grievance with somebody else, your tendency and pattern to hold grievances of others will automatically make you susceptible to being held for grievances to others that are holding you responsible. Make sense? Because judge and you're judged. So it's easier said than done to say, I want to free myself of contracts. I want to free myself of that. The ones I owe. You see what I'm just doing right there? Not the ones that are owed to me. I mean, come on. So if somebody owes you $1 million, you know, you want that money. And somebody else owes you 1,000, you're not letting them off the hook. That's why Jesus gave that example in a couple of parables where he was saying, how dare you hold others accountable when I let your debt go? He was using a sort of a metaphor of God. You say to God, God, the owner of all this land, of the property where I work, the ranch, you know, the Ponderosa, and, you know, you've got Lauren Green kind of playing the God role, and, you know, it's Bonanza. It's an old show. Some of you probably not old enough to remember, but okay, see, there we go. All the seniors like me are humming along to the song. Anyway, you know, so it's like, you know, this concept of how dare you, and it's not that God actually is threatening you or something. It's the universe is saying, how dare you? You asked me to let you off the hook. You begged and pleaded. And I said, your debt is forgiven. And then you left here and went to someone else and told them you wanted to collect on a debt. Now, this isn't actually God being, you know, harsh like it would sound in a parable of the Bible. It's making a point. It's saying to your consciousness, you yourself are saying to yourself, what are you thinking? Your heart and soul knows you want it off the hook from your debts. But then you let your ego hold others indebted. You see? It's not actually being in the sky in conversation like that. It's really the soul that wants to be free, the ego that says no. So the conflict is within us. So this concept of soul contracts, we are making contracts before we come into this life, and we make them while we're in this life. You know, there's even this concept in the old school, in the tradition, which is the sins of one generation are visited upon the second and third generations. So in old school traditions, in the Israelites and some old school traditions, they looked at it this way. And here's what they said: the sins of the father will pass down to the children. How am I responsible for what they did? That's the way it is. That's a contract too. You can break that. But nobody will, because they're so entrenched in, you cannot break soul contracts. And they're not even knowing that that's what that is. Everything other than God is a contract. It's temporary. Contracts end. They expire at some point. Well, we tried to make a contract of permanent separation from God that never expires, which is completely dysfunctional. But at the end of the day, all that matters is the consciousness of God. And in God, there's only peace. There's only love. God is my creator, and he loves his child. God is my creator, and his child loves him. And I use the pronoun loosely. I don't mean him. All right? So how nice is that? God loves its children love God. It sounds like a nice statement, but it's actually factual. We don't act like we love God. Well, we do. We go on Sunday and, namaste. And, that's not what it means to love. Deep down, beyond human behavior, even the Nimrods that you see on the news these days, everybody on a soul level loves and longs for God. It's their egos that are out of control. What we need to let be out of control is our love for God. Out of control meaning, oh, I'm home. That's what needs to be abandoned. Just wild abandon back into the love of God. And just practicing this idea, this feeling, like what if it's true that I still love God and God loves me? Now, again, watch. There's the human. Oh, that's kind of nice. No. I mean deeply. Get it. God absolutely loves me more than anything else in the universe, because I am the only thing in the universe. Me meaning not singularly. Me being the collective of us. God loves us. Oh, what Michael means is, like a parent that goes, oh, you people. I guess I'll just love you anyway. No, I mean, God says, I love you so much, you could never actually change and become messed up. Well, that starts to feel even better. What does that mean, though? It means that we have dreamt up a world, just like in Hinduism. This has been all dreamt up, just like the indigenous Aboriginal people of Australia. We are the dreamers of the dream. This is all dreamt, which is going to be called either a happy dream or a nightmare. It's a happy dream at best, a nightmare at worst. But it's still a dream. You still wake up eventually. And when we wake up, we're home. And God, the sound of God, this thing we call the universe, the one song, universe, one song of God. The one song of God is love. And it's never going to change. No matter how messed up we are or act, it'll never change. There's just underneath all the rude, weird behaviors of humans, underneath every political election, not in the election, beneath it, there's this sound of love. Like just this tone, this God chant. We have all kinds of chants. I hate people. I hate Republicans. I hate Democrats. Those are our chants. I hate meat eaters. I hate vegetarians. We have all kinds of chants. But the good news is, all it is it never actually adds up to anything. It's just this like weird nonsense to God. So God has this tone of love. And that's all it can ever have. Because God loves the children it created. Not in the traditional sense where it loves you, but one day will send you to hell. And don't think that that's just Christianity. A God that loves you and makes you come back karmically is still sending you into hell. So it's not good. Any human version of God isn't good. Well, God's so infinitely loving, it just keeps giving us a chance to come back. That's not God's will. God's will isn't to say, well, you still messed up, but if you go back and try again, and you'll still likely screw up, I'm going to still love you. That's still not God. God is looking at us going, this is so strange. You guys actually think you can be other than divine. I'm just going to wait till you decide to get over that, which is breaking the only contract that was ever actually made, the belief that we could be separate. But under that contract was made every other one. I'm unlovable. Nobody will ever want me. I'm damaged goods. I've been abused as a child. Nobody would want me. These are all contracts we're making up. Self-worth issues, and then finances. And I don't just mean personal ones, universal laws. Gravity is a false contract because it implies that a law of physics has power over you, and it does not, but it seems to. Just know the truth, but respect the illusion. Don't go jump off a cliff and say, I'm going to prove it. This has no power over me. Because what'll happen is about a half a second after you land, they're already making arrangements for you to come back and work on that same thing again. Listen, they're going to send you back as a bird. You want to fly? Hey. Anyway, so soul contracts can be made before we even get here. And some of those are related to the sins of one generation upon another. Now, some of us go, well, that's really, you can tell, that's old school. I don't believe in that. But you do, because that phrase was used more than once biblically. And one of the meanings, which I've shared before, but one of the meanings is the sins of one generation are passed to the second and third generations. Why didn't it say it's passed to the first generation following the last? Because you're not going to be your own child in most cases. When it says the sins, the karma is going to be passed to the second and third generations, it means you still need some time to come back into another life and reap the karma of your own actions. All right? So we're going to come back, and we've got these agreements before we get here. Your family has money, it doesn't have money. What you have to understand is some of you go, well, I was brought up in poverty. And I'm very, sad for people being brought up in abuse or poverty or harm or whatever it happens to be, war, whatever it happens to be. Heart goes out to that, of course. But on some level, we believe that there's something we need to pay, and we sign contracts. I don't know if you've ever been in a position where someone said, you want to buy this car. Oh, yeah, it looked like it's easy, no problem. You want it, whatever cars cost, $30,000, $20,000, whatever they're, no problem. We're going to get you this. And they get you all excited. And you sign the paper. You think you're going to get it. Your payments are going to be $300 a month. Great. They come back. Apparently, you have some nicks on your credit. But we have some good news. We have another company that'll do the loan. It's Guido and Sons. And it's only for 85% interest. We can arrange, you still get the car. They want you to not think about we just sign and you still get the car. And I, as a kid, I remember going, 18%, that sounds good. As a kid, I'm like, okay, because they made it sound like this is all you can do. House loan as a kid, or whatever it happened to be, first house, I just went, well, they're telling me that's all I can deserve, and I have to, or else I don't get what I want. We all do that even in between lives, as well as when we get here. We're willing to sell ourselves short in so many ways. It's really disturbing, but not to make ourselves victims, instead to say, I think I'm going to change this. And all of a sudden, miracles happen. How much you make per hour. It's like so many other paradigms. The Jim Carrey story of, he wrote himself a $10 million check and kept it in his wallet. First of all, actors that were major actors, your Al Pacinos of the world, Didn't even make $10 million at that time. Well, how could a comedian make 10 million? It's not possible. And he was the first to be paid $10 million for a movie. Here he had written himself a check. He had to say, I don't believe in the old contracts. I believe that anything's possible. Think about that. And this has been true. The nerds we made fun of in school own the world. You know, whether it's the Steve Jobs or the Bill Gates or whomever these guys are, you know. It's incredible because that which was not possible became possible. Someone had to believe in it, and they did. They did. They never, for some reason, they always believed that this was possible. So, in a perfect world, you'll have everybody supporting you when you want to break contracts, family contracts, abuse contracts, you know, stereotypes, racial, whatever it is. When you go and fight those things, you're actually not breaking the contracts. When you fight for equality, women's rights, or whatever the topic is, if you go fight to save the forest, the fight binds you into a contract with Guido and Sons. Okay? It does. You resist not evil is the way Jesus is saying it. What he means by that is try not to get caught in the fight to break the contracts, or you're now bound to courtroom dates constantly to fight and break that contract. Like for myself, when you say to me, if you're a woman and you say to me, I applied for this job, they pay women less than they pay the men. My brain doesn't even comprehend that concept. I'm not trying to be better than anybody. I'm saying literally, my little brain can't do that. Like it's incomprehensible. I couldn't imagine paying somebody differently because of anything. You know, I mean, your roles would be different. A CEO maybe than, an employee of some kind. But I'm just saying it doesn't really compute. So the best thing we could be doing is stop computing along those lines. Stop adding to the problem and stop fighting the problem. Get over the problem. Break the contracts in the mind that make you believe those old things. Well, but my parents went through a lot of that, and I'm sorry they did. Now, heal it and release it so that it never happens to anybody else. Go and fight against, child abuse. You're going to be hard-pressed to get through that without having bruises. It's a disgusting reality, world, and so forth along those lines. Go and try to fight for it, against it, and so on, and you're going to find yourself carrying a burden. Why there's so much depression in social work. Because you're getting in to fix something they will not let you fix. And it's going to have fatigue. It's going to have an effect on you. Nursing, what is nursing about? It's a form of being a healer. And yet to be treated like you're something less by others that think they have a higher role, that doesn't make any sense. Next time just say, well, I'll tell you what. Since you're, treating me like this, it's kind of odd. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to go and do the bedpans, doctor, or whomever it is, and I'm not dissing because there's doctors that are kind too, but it's like, you go do the bedpans. Let me do the surgery, whatever. Like, it's get it in the consciousness because that's where the changes happen. But we make contracts. You're not just funneled into those positions without somewhere in the mind believing. I believe money doesn't grow on trees. When I come here, everybody's going to prove it to me. You see what I just said there? Everyone on this planet is going to confirm your belief systems. And your belief systems will create contracts. The contracts aren't the power. It's the belief behind them. So coming to a place of, I believe anything is possible. Realizing, oh my God, there's contracts I made before I got here. There's large and small contracts I made before I got here, and ones that I made when I got here. But there's large and small contracts. For example, hey, you want to do lunch today? Sure. That's actually a contract. You have an agreement, whether it's in here or verbal or in writing. It's a contract. So if I say to you, we're definitely going to do dinner sometime this week. Now, it's not the same as death contracts, marriage contracts. It's just dinner. But every contract you make, mentally, financially, verbally, in writing, contractually, every contract that you don't fulfill becomes a leak. We've done talks just on that, just leaks. They become leaks. Now, if I tell you, oh, yeah, definitely, let's do lunch, and we don't, especially when I know I'm not going to do lunch, there's a leak out of me. Energetically, there's a leak. Like, you could say like a cord, a tentacle or cord running from me to you. And that person, even though outside they're like, oh, I totally understand, deep inside, they're like, reeling it in. You promised me lunch. You never showed up. And there's energy being pulled from you. And you might go, well, I don't believe in that. I don't care. These are contracts that exist in the archetypal mind of man. It's happening. Stop making the contracts instead of spending time pretending that you didn't make them. I just don't believe in that. I deny that. But you did. You make a contract when you're going to die. It's never, ever an actual surprise, other than to your cognitive mind. Your soul's like, well, yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying. And your conscious human self is going, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe they left. No, let me check. Because, contracts, the Akashic record. No, this is right on time. Yeah, it's apparently, according to the contract, they're cheating 5 years ago, 3 years ago, last month, and today you're divorced. This is all there. If you go to your Edgar Cayce Akashic record reader, they're like, oh, it's all making sense. Or as they would say, everything seems in order. But small contracts, dinner. It's still a leak, but it is not as intense as a life and death or marital relationship agreement. So you have small and large contracts. The ones of death are ones that people are going to have a hard time with because you don't remember that contract. And people love feeling like victims. So it's going to seem like a loved one passed away and it happened to them. The doctor, bad guy, he made a mistake. Well, if you could check the contracts, it's there. I'm sorry, I know it's not easy to hear, but it's all there. There are no mistakes in this sense. So somebody got hit by a car accidentally. It's all in the contracts. There are some anomalies. Sometimes we've come in and we're told there's going to be 3 possible ways out. There's going to be one when you're 30, one when you're 43, and another, sometimes that happens, but that's still in the contract. Some people, it's really clear. This is when it's happening. But other people, you have a few options. This one's going to happen, and it's going to come as a result of depression over the loss of a partner who leaves you. And your job is to try to get past it and not die. You see? But it's still somewhat predictable. It's there that this is going to be a pivotal moment. It's almost like saying the veil is going to be very thin that day, and you could easily puncture through it and go to the other side. If you do, you will have failed your test that relates to other people having power over your heart, your love. If you succumb to it, you're not bad, but you'll have to come back and deal with lessons related to that. So each contract you break or try to break in the negative sense, meaning try to ignore or not take responsibility for, each of those will create another whole set of life contracts. So it all gets very, very strange. And we have, past contracts, even future contracts, as well as present. Some past contracts are like vows. Now, some people are new agey, They wear purple, glitter in their hair, and, feathers and kind of cool things. They walk, around Safeway with a drum, doo, 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 doo. All kinds of cool things because they're goddesses. But they're sometimes broke financially. So they're like, I'm not broke, I'm free, and boom, 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 boom. What they don't realize sometimes is a vow in a former lifetime as a nun still prevents them from allowing money to come into their lives. So they're really wonderful souls, but with no money. And, that's just because people don't get me, or that's because I'm an artist. All these stories around it. No. You sometimes have vows you've taken in other lifetimes. And vows, even in other lifetimes, seem like they have a very strong grip. People have sexuality issues now because they were monks in another lifetime. They have fear of God because of another lifetime. I'm using vows as a reference right now. There's vows that people have made in other lifetimes. I vow, I'm your older brother. Our parents died. I'm going to watch over you forever. I didn't realize how long that was. 6 lifetimes later, I'm just an employee. We work in the same place, and I just feel like I have to watch over you and fight for you to get your raise, and, not let anybody gossip about you, that sort of thing. The brother, the overseer, the older sister, or whatever. There's siblings, these vows. Let's watch for. I remember a vow I took, a simple vow, like in 8th grade. A vow, because that's when there was a lot of peer pressure happening. And a guy that I knew moved into the area, and he was kind of not fitting in, so I was trying to kind of, take care of him and help him fit in a little bit better. But at some point, I saw him saying, the kids at school that bug me all the time, they're doing a lot of drugs and smoking, and I said, I'll tell you what, so we agreed, we'll make a vow. No drugs, dude. No cigarettes, let's not succumb to that kind of stuff. And so let's make our consciousness, which is more philosophical, spiritual, let's make that our ideal. And yeah, no problem. I think within a year, he became an addict. So it was like, but that's still an example of, hey, you and me, man, let's make it through this. You can have a sponsor asking a person in recovery, can you make a vow? Let's get through this. And it's a sort of a vow. It's a healthy vow. There are healthy vows. One day it will happen. You won't need any such things, even healthy vows, because there will be no option to do anything but love for yourself and others. Total love experience between God, self, and others. Soul contracts can be perceived to be there, and, perceived meaning it seems as though it's there, and sometimes they're experienced. But soul contracts, we have to understand, even though I'm saying they're an illusion, which they are. They can be broken, released, which they can be. That doesn't mean I'm denying that they don't feel like they have a strong grip today. Just like an addiction. You can say to somebody, do you know that heroin's not really good for you? Yes, I do. Okay, then stop it right now. Ready? Go. There's all this effect. The body wants it. Your body loves some of these vows. The body, the mind, the whole, like viscerally, we're bound to these vows. You can say, there's a vow I have to my ex. I could just never get over them. They keep showing up in my conscience, my dreams, and so on. And you think that they would be just ready. Let's let them go. Guys, vows are visceral. They lock in with tentacles. It's very cancerous in that sense. So you don't just go, okay, done. You would like it to be done. But the vow is between 2 or more people, or you and something else, but it's not just imagined as far as the mind knows for right now. This is something that is connected. I have a vow towards a building. I have a vow towards a person or group. These vows are very tentacle-like. So even though I might say, I don't want any contracts and vows and karma, it's another thing entirely to remove them. And the more a vow and a contract and karma has woven itself into your being, the harder it is to remove it. Not unlike cancer. Some people, they go in exploratory and they go, this cancer is so everywhere in your body. It's like the old joke about rust holding a car together. You have more cancer than you have body. So we can't remove it. You're just done. And that's a contract. But my point is, that's how contracts feel. The indebtedness I have towards my sister from 18 lifetimes ago, and I said, I'll always take care of you. And yet today it's visceral. God, it's so weird. Or my husband or wife, partner, people that you've enslaved in some other lifetime. And now they're back. Payback is hell, right? And so sometimes they come back two different ways. You might have enslaved somebody, or they may have enslaved you. Sometimes we reverse the roles to get them back, which is not good, but we do it. Other times you come back and keep repeating the pattern. For how long? How long do I have to be your slave? You bought me as a slave in the Middle Ages. And you still treat me like I'm a slave. Well, what I was saying about how visceral it is, logically, you don't want to be there anymore as a slave to somebody. And they treat you like you're their slave, meaning like a certain, you mean nothing or whatever it happens to be the pattern. And in some way, you're the one who has to say, wait a minute, I too am so enmeshed in this pattern, it's as though I don't have any other identity but being a slave. So you're in it too. You're buying into it too. Is that making sense? There's something in you that thinks it's valuable to be in that position. So you have to essentially go through counseling and healing to where you don't just say, I don't want this old pattern. You have to get used to the idea of not having it again. You can't just wish you didn't have a heroin addiction nor a codependency. You have to actually be over it and then simultaneously loving the other alternative. Why would I let go of, I'm going to get away from eating meats? But I know I can't because I need protein and meats. And I know, my body, I get headaches if I don't eat protein. So you're not ready for it because you already believe there's too many negatives for you making that change. You have to be willing to be done with one and really, really, truly are ready for the other. And one of the scariest things of all is to say, I don't know what my life will be like without that. But it's got to be good. That's the attitude. There's got to be this, I don't know what it'll look like, but it's got to be good. Obviously better than this, but it's got to be good. If I'm trusting in God, because when I let go of old patterns, I have the right to create new ones. And here's the big problem with that. The universe abhors a vacuum. So when you try to get rid of old patterns and then just sit there going, okay, I think I got rid of that pattern today. You just sit around waiting. You left a void. The pattern goes sneezed out, and the pattern's just kind of floating around going, there's no other hosts here, and it comes back here. That's the analogy Jesus gave about you cast out a demon, it wanders the desert, and it'll come back to its original home. That's what that means. Patterns, addictions. You must put up a sign that says no vacancy. And what's no vacancy mean? I've already got something new having replaced that. So I didn't just go, that's it, no more meats ever. I also replaced it with maybe a vegetable form of protein. It's not just no heroin. And when I feel the craving, I'm going to do some meditation. Replace it with more positive contracts, because for now, we still believe we need something. The day is coming where nothing is needed but God itself. And I don't just mean in some worshipful relationship. We become one with that thing. That is God. So there's positive contracts, there's negative contracts, and here's another twisted piece. Positive contracts are easier to break than negative ones, because that's a contract we have. We have a contract to believe that negative ones are harder to break. It's easy to positive, it's easy. Look how people are so compulsive to be attracted towards, God, there's people that have really wonderful families and households, loving parents. And they still have to say, I have to find out what life is like outside of the safety of my home. Even if they had a decent home, they got to go out there and try something else. Humans have egos, And ego is destructive. So unfortunately, and the way I've put it before when I've talked about this, the brain, what they understand in medical science is the brain treats negatives like Velcro, treats positives like Teflon. That's completely unfair. That's completely unfair. You agree? That's completely unfair. It should have been the other way around. That is also a contract. We allowed our ego to make good seem like something that's fleeting. Teflon, out. And negatives, I can't get rid of them. Right? I can't get rid of them. Look at the human race. Someone that's got some really heavy duty cancer, and watch them try to deal with that. And then some positives. Try to, watch the people's reaction to positives. It's like you could have a great day. One negative can throw you off. You could have a great day. One negative. You could have a 99% great day. If something is enough of a button, it'll just be like, can really throw everything off. And that's the destructive consciousness of human beings with the ego. That's why human beings can meet and go, oh, I love you and I love you too, and I love you and I love you too. And then, oh, your hair's out of place. I want a divorce. It's not the hair out of place. What happened is gradually I let that Velcro stick a negative, and it's like what we call filters. And the filter becomes just blackened with dust and gook. And that's my relationship now. So one day we go, God, look at this filter. This is terrible. I'm going to get rid of this car, this house, or whatever over a filter. The filter collected stuff because that's what filters do. And the filters of our mind. Oh, there's a negative. Oh, I don't like the way you said that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Collecting all the stuff we don't like about somebody. One day going, oh, it's over. For whatever reasons. And all it was an accumulation of judgment, resentment, hurt. Okay? So positives and negatives. And I'm sorry to say, the negative ones seem harder to break contract-wise. But they're not really, they just seem that way. My suggestions would be start creating the habit of creating positive contracts, which would be like saying healthy habits. But start creating that. Start thinking in terms of what can I do differently? Because the negatives will seem harder to break, and here's why. Because negative contracts, all contracts, mind you, but these negatives are stored in your seed atom in your heart. They're stored in the Akashic records. They're stored in your subconscious mind. All of our stuff is stored. Which one is it that doesn't feel good? Negatives. Well, think about this. If my body's feeling really great right now, most people barely notice when they're feeling great. I remember just yesterday or the day before, I remember doing this. I remember walking through my house going, God, I just feel great. But most people don't know that they feel great. But have an ache. You can have a splinter. Walking around going, oh my God, again, this splinter. And not get over it. So a negative seems to hang in there. It seems to get our attention. My suggestion, though, is to try to flip it the other way. Start acknowledging when you feel great, when something feels great, when something seems wonderful. You had a great conversation with somebody. Oh, that's my favorite song. Just enjoy singing it. Get used to the positives. Why aren't people already used to the positives? Because we came in under the number one contract that we're separate from God. So everybody subconsciously is always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the end to come. Oh, look, winning lottery ticket here. Probably now all my former family members are going to come and want money from me. And, that's what the head starts doing. Oh, God, my divorce isn't final. Now they're going to get half of this. Now I only get $50 million. Wouldn't you know it? That's this world, guys. So be careful. It can only change by us. You and I are going to have to get used to weaving ourselves to the positive patterns and cutting ourselves away from the negative patterns. Patterns are even stored in our glands, our chakras, our cells of our body. That's why I'm saying it's so visceral. But when the cells of your body are feeling great, most people don't notice it. So yet you've got to make yourself feel things and think things that you're not used to thinking and feeling. So this stuff gets stored everywhere, my body, my muscles, the glands of the body. In fact, the soul, when it gets a body, it's ready to inhabit a new body, it actually downloads into your chakras relevant information to each chakra. And just to keep it simple, let's say a segment related to each chakra for each, segment of the body. Okay. Root chakra, pelvis, and so on. Okay. Solar plexus, this area, stomach, pancreas, spleen. Okay. Just as an example. Heart, lungs, and the heart, but the heart chakra with the heart organ, the lungs, and so on. So the soul says, here's the stuff we're bringing in from previous lives. And stuff related to heart and this segment of the body. It downloads to each chakra its information relevant to that segment. The segment could mean that particular organ. It could mean that particular gland. It could even mean that area of the body. That area. So if in another lifetime you were literally stabbed in the back or emotionally, psychologically, figuratively stabbed in the back, the soul carries it, downloads it to that area of the body and says, around 30 years old, like a time-released capsule, around 30 years old, it opens up. Now, who's going to help facilitate that? Oh, there'll be somebody. Perfect. Often the one that stabbed you last time. Except this time they may not have a knife. This time it's all, romantic. And you have a hard time getting over it. I just feel like you betrayed me. You stabbed me in the back. Well, that could be because last time you stabbed me. You stabbed me physically in the Crusades, and I'm stabbing you emotionally in this lifetime. What has to happen is you and I have to say, no indebtedness to anyone or to me. If anybody out there feels like you need to get the karma cleared one way or the other, let's ho'oponopono, let's say the Hawaiian prayer and be done. If you want to continue carrying it, I won't be there. See? So, I love you. I'm sorry, I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. Something along those lines. Cord cutting, it's called. Cord cutting. But that doesn't mean just because you go, oh, he's talking about cord cutting, soul contracts, cord cutting, great. And you go to Sedona and you get with some weekend shaman, who's going to do a rattle and burn some sage and go, around your body and go, you're done. You're not done. Energetically, etherically, theoretically, you're done. But if you subconsciously don't want to be done, think you still owe someone or still have a resentment, the cords just get reattached. You'll feel like 24 hours of, wow, I feel great. Then you go back to LA or wherever, and it all seems to come back, and you think, Sedona, I got to move there. It's so magical. It wasn't Sedona, man. It's you reattach the cords. And that happens all the time. People saying, why did it feel like I felt so good, and now this stuff's coming back? That's hurt. That's what it is. It's hurt. I feel bad that I hurt you. I feel bad that you hurt me. It's hurt speaking. And it doesn't want to let this stuff go. It wants retaliation. So how can I once and for all kind of clear? It's not just a ceremonial cord cutting, which helps. It's a tool. Forgiveness, number one, it's where we started half an hour ago. Forgiveness. All right. There's other things you can do. You can do retrospection exercises at the end of every day. Look back over the day. Anything that I engaged in verbally, just even in thought, physically, actions, anything that was off, stop, go back, surrender all ego investment to any of it, and see it happening differently. God, I was just doing great. I had this great meditation, on and on and on. And then my ex called. And if they hadn't called, I would have been fine. So, dear Lord, make them never call again. No, that's not actually healing. Because God's going to go, let's triple the calls next week. You know, because your healing is what matters, not getting your ego's way. So instead, it's like, oh, geez, I see it, man. They called and I immediately felt tight in my stomach. I answered and they said, you know, you seem, you're like you're being harsh at me, you know, and I know I'm not. I'm being loving right now. You're projecting, but they might pick up that tension without you realizing it. They might pick up that you got tense when they dialed your number. So, you know, you're still engaging. At some point, retrospection exercise, let me go back and say, oops, and see it differently. And here's the value of that. You wired the neurons in your brain by thinking that I handled that call better. You're wiring the neurons and making it a possibility more so next time. Did that make sense? You're actually wiring it in your brain. That didn't go so bad. It did. But you're rewiring it. You know what? That's called a mistake. What's a mistake? In Hollywood, take 2. Just do it again. Oh, God, I blew it again. Take 3. A mistake just means do it again. Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, think of these things as mistakes, not sins, not unforgivable sins, just errors. Let me try that again. And when others blow it, I wonder if I could visualize them doing differently as well. Because when you have a program and a contract of somebody being a certain way, they will inadvertently step into the contract that you have for them. Believe it or not. I think of you as a rude person. You'll never be any different. Makes you that way. Now you could walk in the room. You could be out there blissing out, having a great meditation in your morning time, going, God, I just feel like such a different person the last 5 years of my life. And then they find you. And they go, God, you just trigger me. And you know, I didn't even do anything. You might have. You might have been holding a pattern of that person. When they stepped in the room because their will wasn't strong enough yet, they weren't fully recovered from their heroin yet, they stepped right into that addiction. I remember a very popular singer who was a heroin addict. And I remember him saying, yes, I'm in recovery and I no longer do heroin. And the interviewer is going, great, that's really good. He goes, no. If you had some on you right now, I would do it. He said, this isn't easy. I'm working on it, but I'm not done. And then he ended up back in heroin and died. You know, this stuff of life, you think it's just, what's easy for you to say, I would never be doing heroin and die like that. Yours could be some ex that you obsess on. You know, so you can't judge another person's addictions because you'll have your own weaknesses or whatever you'd want to call them. So there's cord cutting exercises, you know, forgiveness, retrospection exercises, cord cutting exercises, even the purging when you're in the dark night of the soul, when you're going through life-changing crisis, not just the existential kind, but I mean, dark night of the soul, man, everything seems to be collapsing in your life. That is a period of purging. That's another way of doing cord cutting. If you do it right. If you walk through the dark night properly, not as a victim, but properly. Look at it as like a process of cleansing, clearing. And I'll even add one more. Try not to create more. Cord cutting, just stop creating cords. How? Well, just in a nutshell. Recognize that this world is valueless. This world has nothing of value because it doesn't even exist. Not because I'm putting it down. It doesn't exist. The world is nothing but a television monitor that mirrors three-dimensional holographic images of our beliefs and where we are in our life. If we're evolving and growing and expanding in consciousness, the world will reflect it. If we're still dealing with karma and cut cords and whatever, it'll reflect that. So try not to put value on things that don't have value. That's not easy. That doesn't mean become like completely shut down, cold, overly stoic. Hi, mommy, I love you. That's an attachment, dear. Just get over it. You know, that would not be good. Now you'll have to come back in another lifetime, you know, and deal with that. That's not healthy. I'm talking about play the game, but recognize nothing in this world has power over me. Nothing. Things that make you feel lesser than good, they do not. You just think they do, so you're in a relationship, a parasitic relationship with things like that. What about the ones that seem like they do? It's a codependence. I am as God created me. I am a holy being, and so are you. All we're doing is working on remembering that. Today I'm not doing very well at that. That's called a bad day. Today I'm doing really well at that. That's called having a good day. I'm not attached to either because my good and bad days are only reflections of how I'm doing. At the end of the day, the end of all the days, I am as God created me. So I feel just great. I'm applying for a loan. I really, really want the loan. Wait, I am as God created me. That's all. Let me get back to that identity consciousness rather than if I get the loan, I'll be happy. You created a codependence. Is that making sense? All right. So coming sort of towards a close, forgiveness and all these other pieces to consider to end these things. It's not just the ceremonies, it's got to be the consciousness. And nothing changes consciousness more dramatically, more effectively than forgiveness. Watch videos and stuff, myself or others, or the book I wrote on the book of love and forgiveness to learn. Because I'm not talking about flippant, fine, I forgive you. I'm talking about the process, the actual process of recognizing forgiveness. Letting go of what we think others are about, the power that we thought they had. I'm not saying they didn't harm you, they didn't hurt your feelings. I'm not saying pretend nothing happened. I'm saying at this point, this is what seems to be, and I'm done letting it have power over me. Start there. Because then you can bring in the next step, which is, and what does have power? Connection. Connection. Oh, but they left me and they hurt my feelings. My connection to God could never allow me to be lonely. So this codependence with somebody has no power. I know it seems like it does, but that's just my old beliefs. I see it, I give it to God, and I replace it with a belief in oneness. Call in something different. So you'll know that you're getting this. You will know that contracts are ending a few ways. One, the sting lessens. The sting that things have, the buttons seem like they're less intense and less often. I don't seem like I get my buttons pushed as often. You start to feel that way. And when they get pushed, I don't go totally nuts over it. It's kind of like that. I mean, I remember the first person that seemed like they were interested in me romantically was probably 8th or 9th grade or something like that. And they lived farther away. And, but we met in one place and then they lived far. So now, the relationship was like, hi, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. One of those things. So we did this. But one day they called and I came home and as is often the case, the doors were locked. I should have taken the hint from my family then, but I was often locked out. So I couldn't get in the house in time to answer the phone. Oh my God. For a few minutes, I was just like life had ended. Oh God, Joe, I can't believe it. Oh, I missed the call and now they may never call again. Like bizarre. I mean, it's embarrassing to even think I would have ever done that, but whatever, got to tell somebody. So it's like, wow, how weird. And that was a very extreme emotional outburst. And it lasted only a few minutes, but it also could have lasted longer. It only shortened because somebody walked in. One of the other family members showed up and they heard me. What are you doing? I'd make something up. I didn't want to be like, my heart was broken because I missed a phone call. That would have never gone over well. So it's like, wow, snap out of it and to realize, well, that's what we do about everything. Everything in this world we think has power. I've seen people devastated because their show is not on today. Like my grandmother used the word, my soaps. My soaps aren't on. There's an inconvenient thing about a horrible earthquake that killed a million people. And where's my soap? You are the soap, Granny. Oh, no. But anyway, If you find the opposite, instead of feeling better, remember, if it's not going away, be careful, guys. It can mean that you're not wanting to let people off the hook. It can mean that you're not wanting to take responsibility. These are the reasons why the cords aren't going to be cut. You might not want to let somebody off the hook. You might not want to be taking responsibility. And that one alone is going to be enough to sabotage, people's healing. One last one is, if you start to clear contracts, one of the things you're going to notice when you're improving, but you might not want subconsciously, is something called instant karma. When you start clearing contracts, it means I'm not buying into anything that's a timeshare, anything that's payment, like a credit card, payment. No. What you're saying subconsciously is, I'm done with that. The universe is going to say, so what you're saying is that if ever you do something, you're open to instant payment plan, right? Right? Instant karma. Oh, yeah. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you pray for. I think it's brilliant, personally, but not when it's happening. Instant karma. A little something and then bam, and it comes right back on you. But that is actually one of the most consistent signs of major spiritual advancement. It sounds horrendous, but major spiritual advancement, because what you're saying is, I want no contracts, no payment plans. I want to stay clear now. That means nothing's allowed to be held up for another lifetime, which means you're going to have what's going to tempt you to feel like a victim. Because I remember as a kid going, a friend steals a piece of bubble gum. If I steal a piece of, I get caught. I was always like, wait a, I literally said, God, this is unfair. Everybody else gets away with everything. I mean, it was like that as a kid. Later on, I realized, thank you, because I have no debts. That's the way it feels. And everybody else that got away with it's going, God, these bills keep arriving, every week, every day, every month. And I'm like, God, this is amazing. I don't have any bills. That's how it feels. All right. Please take a few centering breaths. And just breathe into these few concepts, please. We have the right to choose karma and contracts. So choose them if you want. But as you're quieting your mind and you're drawing yourself within, ask yourself if that's truly what you want. Karma, negative contracts, patterns of a negative nature. Take a moment to own that you can see, even if you're not sure of examples, just own that you can probably see them. Contracts, vows, just own, yeah, I could probably see where I played that out. And then try to find a decision inside that says, this is no longer for my greater good. And it never was. All the things we just covered. The reasons you might want to keep patterns. Not wanting to let people off the hook, not wanting to take responsibility, not wanting to have instant karma more often. Just look at that. And are you able to say, I don't buy that anymore? The negative contracts and vows would imply that you would rather be in charge of your life because you don't trust God. If you let go and let God, God's not going to have any vows for you. God's not going to have any debts for you. But we're not used to that, so it seems scary. But it's not. It's really just accessing the control freak inside. Can we do it? Can we do it? What will I do? If I don't have bills showing up, I might not even need a mailbox anymore. That's different. That seems weird. I would be weird to not have a mailbox. So I need some bills. This is the kind of thinking we have. If I come to earth, I come here partly because of karma. If I don't have karma, I'll have no reason, no excuse to be here. And then, gosh, what would I do? I wouldn't be able to see my kids, my cat, and so forth. Or can we trust that we would still be able to be anywhere we want to be, but freely, happily, joyously, prosperously? We can keep any and all of them, but if we can make a different choice, we're saying this from our soul. Heavenly Father, Mother God, I do understand how, where, and why I sometimes have felt indebted to others or them to me. I know that at times I wanted to be debt-free, but not as excited about freeing the debts of others. In this moment, I am calling in the power of the Divine Mother, calling upon her Spirit, her holiness, to well up within me and or descend upon me and become this ovum, this egg of light around me, clearing all ties, not of bad people out of my life, freeing all the holy children of God. None of you owe me anything. I owe you nothing. We are free and we're one. How could I owe myself? We're one. And if anyone comes to mind that you go, not that one, take it with you and use it for more healing later. But am I willing? Yes, 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 yes. As best I can. Yes, yes to all of them. Yes. Done, clear. Karma, contracts, issues, limitations, all the beliefs of the past. I'll still play the game. I can still pay bills. I can still know that gravity isn't something to challenge too much. But deep, deep down in my soul, today I affirm, none of this has any power over me whatsoever. And I feel a celebration inside. Free at last, free at last. We are all free at last. Thank God. And when I move forward today, I'm alive, not the walking dead. I'm alive. Nothing sucking energy from me. Nothing draining my pocketbook nor my mind. Free at last. And I ask you, Holy Spirit, do all that you can to help me refrain from going back to the compulsions and addictions of those former patterns. And so it is. Thank you, guys. All right, we're just going to do our closing prayer. As we're preparing for that, by the way, there's a tape called, the CD set called Spirituality Volume 4. It has a talk on forgiveness and judgment, be careful what you ask for, prosperity and abundance, and karma and contracts. So if you'd like more on these types of topics, then you could look at that DVD set. Okay? All right, we're going to do our collection and our closing, a closing prayer. All right. Please be as generous as you can. Any extra donations you can make would be great. We can put them towards our establishing a new place. We've got obviously a lot of expenses in creating the new place, but beautiful, man. It's really, really, you're going to love it, okay? Unless you have any contracts to this place. I recommend cut them and let's create some new ones. All right? So holding your love offering to your heart and soul. The wording for the prayer is on the front of your bulletins or is posted online. Together, please. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. All right. So it'll only be a minute. The blue bags are for the love offerings donations if you're in the room. The baskets are any extra donations. We help out, people lesser means or towards special projects like the new place. While they're passing those out, I can just say that the new place, it's probably, so much of us are, we're doing a lot of the work that it saves a lot of funds that otherwise would have to be spent. The whole process of renovations, probably 3 weeks, that most people would take 3 months to accomplish. But for all kinds of reasons, we won't wait 3 months. First of all, we're nowists. Second of all, you end up paying more if you take longer, because you're paying for 2 buildings. So just responsibly, financially speaking, it's done sooner. But still, it's maybe $100,000, to get all that done. So all the donations, are great. We probably, Unity is paying a lot of that, but the donations from everybody else, and we'd love to get it to match what Unity's putting into the change, renovations and what everybody else is donating. But, soon enough, we might be able to reach that if everybody just continues to be generous. So we appreciate it. And you can adopt specific topics. You can adopt landscaping, more foliage or a water fountain or, whatever topic somebody wants to see us have there within reason. Some of them we can do, some of them we can't, but whatever we can, okay? But anyway, thank you guys. So we're going to just do our closing prayer, all right? You can please stand. Folks online, please hear this. Try not to just, when you're at home, sitting in your living room and kind of half hearing the prayer. We want everyone worldwide, because this is now a worldwide ministry, as it were. We want everyone to really feel it. What I'd like to see happen with our new property and with our new experience online too, and I've had this idea since around the year 2000, but the technologies weren't there. I want these experiences online to feel like this is your sacred experience. This is a sacred Sunday service for everybody. So you're in the room, yes, and it's wonderful, yes, but online, do your best to imagine that screen becomes something you're sort of teleported into, and it becomes this sacred experience. I really want to make that happen and not keep this in any form like the world does, linear. I'd like this to become a multi-dimensional experience for the folks online like it is here for us, okay? So we're all doing this together. All right, just centering on gratitude. Smooth and clear and clean. Within a couple of weeks, we'll be back to playing music live, having music here. Connecting and connecting at a deep level. Let's picture color connecting us, and sounds and tones all around the world. The people here simply are able to anchor it physically, but everyone around the world joining us. A feeling of gratitude. The light of God surrounds us.
We are the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
We are the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
We are the power of God.
The presence of God watches over us.
We are the presence of God.
Wherever we are, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Thank you so much. God bless you all. You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, guys online. We appreciate your help and support. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you all.